Oh, I don't know how she does the fancy countdown thing. We'll give it like 20, 25 seconds. We'll see how it goes here.
Yeah, we may be live already. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, we are live. We're 23 seconds in. I'll let it go for, 30 seconds or so here, and then I'll solo Mio.
No, you're definitely on.
Yeah, we're on.
Yeah, okay. We'll let it go to 1 minute, and then we'll start talking. Bum, bum. Yeah, we got 2 viewers now.
Well, one of them is Zach.
One of them's Hans. I just saw his comment pop up to the side here. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to X Rock Live. I am your host tonight, Cord from Mother's Recovery Off-Road. Unfortunately, Tiffany is dealing with some work issues, so she will not be able to join us, or she might pop in. We'll figure that out when we go, and we will have some fun. I'd like to take a minute and thank our sponsors: JM Rigging Supply, Mother's Off-Road Recovery, Radial Dynamics, and my phone just went blank. That's cool. 386 Fab, Wheeling for Warriors, and Kincaid Fabrication. Thank you all for making this year possible and the years past, because you all have been sponsors for a couple of years now. So I greatly appreciate it. And I'd like to join us tonight is Mr. Jon Rubenstein of Chaos Off-Road Park. How you doing tonight, John?
Howdy. How are you doing?
Oh, wonderful night. It's a little rainy outside, and just another wonderful evening, as we always have out here in New Jersey. I don't know if that's a better. Try to make this better. Sorry, I know I'm a mess tonight. I'm not all set up as I usually am. So tell us a little bit about your park and everything that's going on over there, and how many years you've been going for.
Well, the park's been in existence for 11 or 12 years now. That basically, I've been a wheeler all my life. And, I met some wheelers who were interested in expanding the park infrastructure in the area. And we got together and decided my place was appropriate for a park. And basically, 80% of the trails were cut in already because we were in the logging business and we have logged this place repeatedly. And the basic trails, of course, they were skidder trails. Some of them were pretty rough and some of them were pretty good, depending on, 20 years of erosion and where they laid. But in any event, we decided to set the park up. One of my concerns was being so close to Washington, D.C., and with the Jeep craze, there were a lot of novice drivers, bought a Jeep last week and going to be here on the weekend and try it out. Saw the Rubicon commercial and thought they were going to wheel. That we set the park up like a skate park, where the main loop is it's basically a green trail. There's some hard spots, green trail hard spots, you know what I mean, where you'd be challenged on a green trail, but it's a green trail. And all the obstacles are set to the sides where you can bypass it. So where the trail will go by and then there's a big rock pile or a big ledge or a series of obstacles. So you don't get stuck on a trail. One of the things that would concern me was about people braking. They're broken a rock pile, and if you got a trail that's 2 miles of rock pile, you're basically stuck fixing them in place.
Yep.
Or with
been there, done that.
Or off the top of a mountain. Well, I wanted to be able to avoid all that. Or if there's an injury on the trail, and they happen, usually minor, but they happen, you can get them out of there. And so it's worked out well, and it's kind of a unique setup where I've been a lot of parks where, you ride and ride and ride, and it's basically, for me, an experienced wheeler, boring. And then you get to the obstacle, and it scares the bejesus out of me for 5 minutes, and then it's boring, boring, boring again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where here,
there are definitely some parks out there where you ride out 30 minutes out into no man's land to finally find the obstacle you want to hit.
right,
It's boring and slow, and all of a sudden you're like, for 15 minutes you're excited because you're like, oh, this is awesome, and then once you get to the
right,
end of it, you're like, all right, another 30 minutes across the other side of the park to go hit the next fun thing.
right, right. And so this place is compact. It's 400 acres, but there's something pretty much everywhere along the trail. You know, and there are some harder trails. Uh, like we have one that's a talus. Now anybody can get down a talus. Try going up it. You know,
Yeah.
Now of course if you're on 40s, you can go up a talus. You know, but
Well,
you still
also
got.
that depends on how long your wheelbase is.
That's true. And and so you know what I'm saying. And so we've got a lot of. It's an interesting mountain terrain. We built like what we call a bathtub. It's a mud hole. It's about 50 yards long, about 4 feet
Yep.
deep, always full of water. There's a V ditch and an obstacle course that we built that's basically set up for beginners to learn foundational skills of, like, for instance, there's a set of whoops and they're all at like 45-degree angles. So they understand getting one wheel over the edge at the time so they don't bottom out. They learn to do that.
Yep.
And so, it's pretty fun. And there's something here for everybody, from the extreme rock crawler right down to the beginner. Now, one of the things that's changed, formerly I had a partner. I was partnered with Chaos Fab Shop, A.K. Watley.
Yep.
He's currently an Ultra 4 racer,
Yes, sir.
and our contract expired. So, I'm pretty much on my own right now. And I'm strongly considering renaming the park. And because to differentiate independence. And the other thing
Correct.
is for
Yes.
liability for him, so that he something that happens here doesn't come back on him. He's no longer associated with the park. And so,
Gotcha.
I'm considering Rampage Off-Road Park. Everybody who's been up here knows my dog Rampage, the killer.
Yep.
And she's
I
getting
think
pretty
that's
old.
and I think that's very fitting because it allows you to have a little bit of fun with the name, and you can run some indie-endos and stuff. That's a really
Right.
cool name. I like that.
Well, I mean, I want everybody to have a good time and wheel hard and ride as hard as you can possibly ride. And Rampage always did everything as hard as she could possibly do it.
Yep.
And so I think it's a pretty fitting name. And
Has some
that's where.
history.
Yep. So that's what I was thinking anyway. And so next year it'll
I,
probably be different.
you're gonna try to open up to the public more next year and try to make your park more sustainable to come out and have fun, or are you still just
I
gonna do events?
I would prefer to do events.
Okay.
And the reason being is the skill level, and we're on the East Coast.
Yep.
I'm trying to be nice about it. There's a lot of people you got to hold their hand, and I don't have time to hold everybody's hand. Now, when you have an
Yep.
event, I can bring guides in, additional people, guides in. And so, what I liked about the more skilled events, or like when I have a wheeling group, say a club, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
they're used to
Yep.
recovering each other. Now, I'm happy to help them recover. But, a lot of these people, they show up by themselves, and the first time they have a flat tire, a pinch flat, they're in a panic. They're on the side of a mountain, or the first
Yeah.
time they see off camber, they freak out. And so, it's just it's hard to be open to the public where to start that way. I'd have to have a weekend cadre who was here leading tour guides and that kind of thing. But I
Yep.
do plan to
And then if you
do
have making
small,
it,
I do plan to do smaller groups, you know,
yep.
allow groups like you got 6 vehicles, you want to come up, you got, and radios, some means of getting a hold of me.
Yep.
If you have a problem, I'm happy to help. It's not that I'm not happy to help, but they'll run me to death over zip ties, duct tape, hose clamps, like run me to death over zip ties, hose clamps, duct tape, starting fluid, silly things that you should
You've
have.
you've bailed
Everybody.
me out a couple times.
Well, that's different. When you need welding or something like that, I'm happy to do that stuff. That's part of being a good host. But you can take advantage of a good host too.
Yes, you
And
can, and a lot
and
of people try to do that.
and they try and do it. Like, I've lost a lot of tools running the park to where I won't lend tools anymore. You can use them in front of my
Yep.
shop where I'm watching but they'll borrow something, and of course, I've gotten smarter and I give them my Craftsman stuff. I'm not handing any Snap-on or Matco stuff out, but,
That
but I've
stuff's
lost several
expensive.
tools. Yeah,
I
I lost several
that's
expensive tools, and it's always the size you need in the shop on Monday, and it didn't come back, so I kind of got done
that's
with
why I
that.
run the Blue Point kits on my. That's why I run the Blue Point kits on my truck. They're easy to open up, and you can see everything in them. Want to make sure before you close it to make sure everything's back. And if you do lose something, it's not outrageously expensive to get new ones.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
So I agree with that. Let's see what else is there. So you're gonna open up probably to more events and groups. So if anybody has a group of, let's say, 10 plus people, and they want to come out and join your, see your park, they could give you a shout and see if you're available for the weekend they're thinking about.
Exactly. I've
Awesome.
done that anyway in the past. There are
Yep.
groups that are completely autonomous, like me checking up on them, like you got, like X Rock. Like, you don't need me to check up on anything. You got it covered. You got the recovery. I don't have to do any recovery the whole weekend.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just,
We
it's easy for me.
we try
And
to come prepared and fully assembled.
but there are a number of groups that are just that way and take pride in it. And
Yep.
part of wheeling is learning to be independent in the field, right? You got
Part of
something
it.
breaks, you better figure it out. You're with a buddy, you better figure it out to get yourself home.
Most of the crew I ride with are available to do that. Yep.
You know, and so that's part of the wheeling experience. And so, experienced wheelers all understand that. It's
Yeah.
the guy who bought the Jeep T-shirt, got a Rubicon yesterday, and he shows up, or he bought his Rubicon and now he put 37s on it, and he thinks he can do anything.
Got 4 ducks
Eh,
in the parking lot, and now he's ready to do
Go-
whatever.
do whatever, and he doesn't have tools with him. He doesn't have any spare
Uh,
parts. He doesn't have anything. They're the reason I don't want to open the park just for the general public, because they will wear
yeah.
me out.
Yep.
Like kind of like Roush, where you buy a membership, show up anytime. The other thing
Yeah.
is that I lease the property for hunting, and so there are times a year where the park is closed,
Correct.
and I certainly wouldn't want people coming up here, Thanksgiving week, for instance. City people have no sense about that kind of thing. Oh, I'm off this
Yes.
week,
Correct.
and the kids are off. Let's go up there and screw everybody's deer hunting up. You know, Spring gobbler. Oh, it's warmed up. They don't realize we're like almost permafrost here. You can't get
Yeah.
across the fields right now. It's so wet with all this rain. But you come here in May and you're going to sink to the axles in the fields. And I don't want them. Obviously, situationally it may be all right, but odds are it ain't all right.
Yeah.
And so that's another issue with like opening like Roush is for a good example.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
you buy.
the other thing is if you open up like Roush, you don't know what people are doing on your trails. They're beating it up to hell, daily, and the trails aren't what they were, after 1,000 people go through.
Well, the other thing is I found that people's idea of airing down is there's a wide variety in airing down. Some people think airing down is airing down to 30.
Yeah.
I have people who come up here and air down to 30. They let 5 pounds of pressure out of their tires. That's air down. And then they
I know.
wonder why they got no traction. Everybody else who's on 15 is going right up.
Well, I mean, to be fair, my truck, I air down to, I actually air up to 20 in the back, but I also have I also have 3/4 water in the back tires.
Right.
So
Exactly. You got to run what's appropriate to your vehicle.
correct.
But they show up with a stock Rubicon and they will not put 15 pounds of pressure in them tires.
And you have to, yeah.
And you have
You're,
to. And they tear your trails up. They just
the going up that main power line right out of your gate there. That's for someone that's just off the street. That's not for faint of heart.
No, it's not. And it's fun and it's pretty safe. But
Yeah,
they'll dig a series of ruts and holes and spin all the way up it and basically destroy the trail for the next person. And then next time it rains, we get a gully washer. Now it's nothing but a rock slide up through there and bumpy, really bumpy. And where you got to fish a line because it's rutted up anyway. And now you got boulders in the ruts that are sliding out from under you. It just they mess the trails up. And so I want to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to try to keep, especially your main runways, in and out of places the best you can, because otherwise, then it just makes everything more of a pain when you do have that emergency or do have that problematic car that you need to bring back down out.
Right. And you want to be stupid on the other side of the mountain. You know what I mean? Not that it's out of sight, out of mind, you know what I mean? But because at least you're not impeding other people's ability to get places.
Yep.
And so, but they'll do that unwittingly. They don't even know, and out of ignorance, and bullheadedness, and I've had them come here, and then I've had them air up when we go out of here. What was that girl put? What 85 pounds because they're load range E's. She had a TJ, put 85 pounds in the TJ. Max pressure.
She only aired down to 50.
And she aired down to 50.
I'm glad that most of the stuff I do recovery for is racers or some kind of professional setup, so they understand how that stuff works. I don't know if I
Well, after 12 years of it, I've lost my patience for people. In other words, if you'll accept my help, I'm glad to help you. But, there's the old saying, you can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. If your ego, right, you can't recover. Your ego is an impediment to their forward progress. And that's literally, So, that's why, I'm not looking to be a full-time park. I will put some events together for next year. In the meantime, the park is, we've had a lot of water damage here. It would be great for the pros. They would have loved it. You know what I mean? Because things are tough. And, but, as far as being open and right now with, with beginners, it's not for beginners.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, we came there, it's got to be at least 5 years ago now.
Oh, it's more than that. It's probably
I'm trying to remember 8 years when we first came out, because you were one of the parks of the first year, I believe, that we ran X-Rock. And your place has a traction like nobody's business, and if it rains, it makes it from grippy to slick rock. And I've never truly understand how that works at your place. But it's awesome.
Well, the
At the
rocks
same
are
time, and
the
so
the boulders are quartzite. It's a very, very hard
mhm,
mineral. It's one of the hardest rocks on Earth. And when it gets wet, it gets smooth and smooth and hard. It's not like sandstone where you can heat the tires up and peel into the side of the stone. You're not peeling into anything with quartzite. Even a diamond drill has trouble getting through it. I think I lost you. I know I lost you. Yep. So I guess I'll carry this conversation myself. So anyway, I look forward to opening the park next year by myself. This year I thought I was going to get it together,
yeah, I'm
and
sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
that's all right. And I didn't have time. There is something I want to talk about though, and that is the X-Rock program scheduled for middle of August. Um, Unfortunately, we've only had three people. The registration ends tomorrow,
Yep,
and we've only had three people register,
and that's absolutely sad. It's
and
ridiculous.
it is sad, and it's problematic, and unfortunately, it's politics. And I'm going to go into that politics here in a moment, but obviously, we can't sustain a program with where the first place prize is $10,000 with three entries.
Correct.
It's not realistic. And it's really unfortunate what's transpired because I'm really embarrassed and a little ashamed of the competitors because they're supposed to be pros, a professional. They go to work. You're a professional in the rigging and tow business. It's raining or it's
Yep,
snowing. Your boss yells at you. You go to work, right? It's not pleasant
every
every
day.
minute. There are people you don't like on the job, but you deal with it because you're making a living at it and you're a professional.
Yep,
Now, professionals put principles above personalities, not personalities and then politic because you don't like somebody or you don't like the way things are going. And there's basically an incident that's been going on for some time now that was because I know some people who are going to watch this who are unfamiliar. So I'm going to tell you what happened. There's an X-Rock member who was our X-Rock's videographer was chatting back and forth. She's a woman, and she was chatting back. Her and her boyfriend were both chatting back and forth with this X-Rock competitor on you know, late in the evening one night, and everybody was drinking. And they, the guy's wife got jealous.
there was a meme that was there was a certain
There was
meme that was
also a
shared,
meme. There was also a meme. Yep, there
and
was a meme
that's
that,
what transpired a lot of the issues.
and so, okay, and there was a meme that was transparent, and it was a little off color, but who isn't off color? Anybody here has been off, everybody who watches this and everybody who's going to watch it has been off color at one time or another among friends drinking. And then
Yep,
it turned into uh, the guy's wife doesn't want him coming if she's there. She thinks he's having an affair with her, which is a ridiculous accusation. And I'll tell you why it's a ridiculous accusation. The competitor brings his son there, and he's there with his son, and our videographer brings her boyfriend, and he's part of the program too. And so everybody's up on the mountain together, everybody's down off the mountain together. There's no private time. where you could have an affair and it wouldn't be a wide open secret among everybody who was here. So it's just completely unrealistic. Well, the X-Rock competitor called and wanted Hans to fire his videographer and hire one of his friends. And Hans refused, as I would refuse or you would refuse. You stand
Yep.
by the people who've been loyal to you. What she did was not on the clock, and it was private. And if you're going to do that kind of politics, it's dirty. And so Hans, stood up, and the guy said, "Well, then I'm going to take me and my friends, and I'm not playing in your sandbox anymore." And that's basically the gist of it. So it turned into a junior high school cat fight that the boys lined up on two sides, because you don't want to be your girlfriend upset with you, or you don't want to be peer pressure. That guy's important. I want him to think I'm cool. And it's basically what's going on. Where I'm really bothered is by the people who know that it's all a bunch of foolishness, that they weren't willing to break the picket line and come across that picket line and do the right thing, because the series is valuable. There's no other $10,000 payout. Somebody could have earned $10,000 next month. No
Yep.
other big payouts, and there's no other rock crawling at this level. Even We Rock, they have a bunch of different classes, and I watch it. I watch all the videos, and I watch all that stuff. It's not on the level of X Rock. It's way easier.
Nope.
And so I feel like a true competitor would want to compete, and you want to compete with the best. You want to beat the best. You don't just want a trophy.
And at that
And
day, at that time, you knew you were the best, and you walked away with the best and the prize money.
in the moment, because your odds are you're not going to be
Yep.
the best next month. Everybody, the
Right.
field is way too close for somebody to dominate it. But the shame of this is X Rocks is at the precipice of becoming well known. They did Hammers this year, and it was hard. And I think it was hard, and it frustrated people, because 100% of people didn't look like a superstar in a national arena. Well, guess what? You're not going to look like a superstar 100% of the time. Nobody. So I'm upset about the politics that's going on, and I think it's very childish what happened, that you're sabotaging an entire series over petty grudges and allegiances to peer pressure. And then in 2 years, they're going to come back and they're going to be like, "Man, We Rock is really not interested in doing East Coast stuff, because I've worked with Big Rich before in the Ultra 4 stuff." And he comes to the East Coast, and then he decides it's too far to drive and he doesn't want to do the East Coast. And then he comes back, then he sends his minion to the East Coast to run another series. And then he doesn't like it, and then they go back. And they're going to find in 2 years, they're going to be like, "Yeah, there's no East Coast series anymore. There's nowhere to wheel competitively, and we got to drive all the way to the West Coast." I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen, because I've seen it.
I could tell you that's what's happening right now. JM Rigging put up a whole post about how, what's their, sponsor in the whole world, in rock crawling, and you got like 3 people that actually named something other than X Rock, We Rock, and Trailbreaker.
Right.
That's all that's here.
That's it.
That's all that's here anyway.
So I mean,
So you're talking about taking professionalism to the next level, or to an event. And if I had a rock crawler and I was trying to be the best rock crawler in the United States, and or run every series that was possible, having one less series doesn't help the sport. it's actually going to ruin the sport, because the sponsors and stuff that are feeding into the sport are going to see that it's declining, not moving forward.
Right. And not only that, it's not just that. They hurt me financially. They hurt all the sponsors who laid money aside financially. There's
Yep.
a whole cascade in this politics where, I've got permitting to do. I got to sign a contract with the porta potty guys. I got to contact an insurance agent. Now, luckily, I didn't spend what it cost me to mow this place, which is about $800 in fuel,
Yep.
and a week's
The whole
time.
field.
Well, this field and the upper field has to be mowed for regulatory purposes in case we need a helicopter. If they would roll, if there was a serious injury, I've got to have a place for a helicopter to land, and it's in the park emergency plan.
Gotcha.
So, I've got to get there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's not just me. You look at your judges and your people who are everybody who's involved and scheduled time off work and plan their season around this.
Yep.
These people, the architects of this are poisoners. The architecture of this are poisoners, and they poison a lot of people. And I'm embarrassed for them. I really am, because I think that they're better than that. And the people who followed them, I know they're better than that. I don't think they understand the repercussions of what they've done. Just like there are young people involved in this sport. Is that what you want to model to your young people? That you kowtow because it's socially inconvenient for you to stand up for what's right? Is that what you model? And then us old people, we all bitch that our young people got no character, right?
or balls.
Or no balls, right? They got no character and no balls, and
Everybody's
then
soft.
and everybody's soft. And look what you're showing them right now.
Yep.
And so I'm a little disgusted with everybody at the present time.
I 100% agree with you. I pour my heart and soul into this series and do all kinds of stuff to try to make sure everything goes on as planned and pushed. But we can't have anything without competitors. If we don't have competitors,
Right. Exactly. And so, if they don't want it, there's nothing you can do about it. But the fact is, I know they want it, but they want to get their way, and they're willing to destroy it to get their way. Like the individual involved is willing to destroy the program to get his way.
yep.
And there's something seriously wrong with that mindset. And there's something seriously wrong with everybody who follows that mindset. And that's it. That's what I got to say on that. I'm sure Hans has some more feelings on that, but I'm trying to be nice about it,
Yeah.
and not call people out personally, but the people involved know who it is. And I know there are other people who are watching. I got a lot of calls. I got more calls this year for spectators. That was the other thing. They asked that I insure spectators this year, which I gladly did based on the success of last year.
Yep.
And so I had to
We had quite a few spectators at your place last year that weren't, wasn't expecting to have through people that came through with other groups.
Right. And so I was going to allow spectators, and I had tentatively invited a number of serious off-road groups. And I got calls from all over the South from folks about coming up here, to watch it. And it's probably based on the Hammer series, that they enjoyed what they saw out there and they wanted to see it for real. And, my phone rang off the hook with spectators, and the guys bailed on the program. Shame on them.
I can't grow a sport if people are trying to make it turn backwards.
Well, the truth is, I question whether they have true competitive spirits, because there's a competitor, like when I was boxing, I lost a lot when I was beginning. And sometimes I still lost. But you're a competitor. You can have a bad day. The the pride was in competing. The fact that I
Y-
was there, you made it to the top 1% of a sport. Just being there, you made it to the top 1% of the sport. And so I just don't see that they respect their achievements enough as a group or respect the sport enough as a group.
You don't have to tell me about that spirit because I brought an F-150 to a Jeep fight.
Yeah, yeah, you
And
did.
that's and at the end of the day, I wasn't there for, winning or losing. I was there to put on a show and have fun because that's the spirit.
Yes,
I
exactly.
never went into anything ever thinking I was going to win. The one time I trophied at X Rock,
Right,
it was I didn't even know I was going to trophy, and I actually made Dan Etcher run
right,
for run for his money because I came in third and I was only 2 points off of him. And so
right,
he was worried at the end of the day that I was going to beat him in an F-150. And there was some other people that were very upset that I beat them in an
right.
F-150. But
Well,
any other time I came out, it's literally just to have fun. Like,
right,
and if I had a buggy and $10,000 on the line, it would be a whole nother animal.
right, exactly. $10,000 is a lot of money to me, especially they're driving expensive rigs,
Yep.
and things break. And that's money in the pot for upgrades or wear parts or that kind of thing to continue. That could pay one win like that could pay for your next year's maintenance, you
Yep.
know. And so it's a big deal. And so I just don't see forsaking that.
Well,
I just can't imagine it.
all the work we put in to try to get that money too. Nobody sees that behind the scenes. uh, Tiffany and I spent 2 days at King of the Hammers, wheeling and dealing and talking to people to try to get stuff set up for next season.
Right. And so, I just think that it's shameful what's going on. And, you know, and
I
it's
agree, John.
disheartening. I feel terrible for all of you all. I feel terrible for Hans. I feel terrible for everybody who put their sweat into this program over the last 8 years because
Yep.
they threw it away, and they're going to be sorry. You'll see. And I don't know how you come back from this. You know.
At the end of the day, we're just gonna keep doing what we do. Um, X Rock is still there, and we can do whatever we want to do, and
Right.
no one can stop us. Really, the only thing
Right.
that can stop us is people not showing up.
Right.
So, unfortunately, that's what we're running into.
Okay. Well, it is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And that's all
Yep.
I quote Forrest Gump. That's all I got to say about that.
Uh,
Oh, I got one other
and
thing.
about 20 of them Dr. Peppers.
Oh, I got one other thing to say about that is that, it's kind of professional cowardice is what's happening. Like, I understand the individual involved where his wife, has got him by the balls and he doesn't want to have marital issues over it and he could stay home from the event. But everybody else letting him spoil it for him. It's just professional cowardice, is all it is. Is that it's social loafing where they're afraid to stand up, afraid to make it, uh, have a disagreement with somebody. Of course, when you go to an event and you go do things, you want it to be pleasant, you know, but it would be
Yep.
pleasant with him. It would have been pleasant with him or pleasant without him. And my question is, why didn't he just bring his
Hmm.
wife? Then she knows what's going on. She's there with the son and her son and her husband the whole time, right? She could have just brought her wife.
Yep.
He could have just brought his wife. But this was a power play. He wanted somebody else to do it. My feeling is he wanted somebody else to do the videography, and he felt that he could force the issue, and everybody else followed him down the road to destruction.
It's a damn shame.
Yep. So with that,
one thing that Rock is never going to do is we're not going to bend and give, to something and put their horrible sweat into something to get lost because somebody doesn't like them.
right?
Not going to happen.
Well, Hans doesn't bend on other issues. I've heard people say, the competitors say, he sets the course up too hard. You notice you notice that the events, the guy makes one gate or two gates, and the next guy makes one gate or two gates, and then the next thing you know, one guy will nail all 5 gates, and you're like, how in the heck did he just do that? It's doable if you do it right, and he's got the art of seeing that.
We have set gates at events that people were like, oh my God, that is way too hard, blah, 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 blah. It ain't going to be doable, blah, blah, blah. And then like one or two people might try the gate that time.
Right.
We will set the same exact gate next year. We will find the dots, set the same exact gate, and then at least half the crew will go through that same gate that was set the year before. And that's, when it comes down to when people say the courses are set too hard, it literally the next year we set the same stuff that people don't try or whatever, and that gate gets ran more times than any other gate we set.
Well, I think that's one.
It's called growth. People are scared at first to do something, and then they get used to the car, used to what they're doing, and they're like, "Oh, we're willing to try this now." And oh, look, it works. So I get where people it's too hard, but at the same time, try it. If you don't try it, how do you know it's too hard?
I think that's one of the reasons the young people are so successful. First off, they're not afraid to get dunked on their lid. And the second off, they're still experimenting what the vehicle can do, and they're not afraid. And
I'll
like
give a shout out to Brett Dickey right now. I'll give a shout out to Brett Dickey right now. Kid has that car figured out, and he is so calm behind the wheel, it's ridiculous.
Right, exactly.
I've seen the kid maybe wince at something once.
Right. Right.
So, and he'll be 17 this year.
Right. And little Charlie is no slouch either.
No, the little Charlie, gained a lot of momentum over the last 2 years or so, and went from someone that was scared and came out, and he's done some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even Danny, when we first met Danny was 13 or 14 when he first took over the car from Dean, and Danny's grown in strides since the beginning. So out of all of them, I think Danny's a little bit more sensitive because Dean's dumped him on his head too many times. But no offense to Dean or Danny, but sometimes things don't go right. And but at the time, Danny was the only kid on the East Coast.
Right.
And he was the only one out here.
But I think that spirit is what makes those kids appear exceptional. Because what's exceptional is
and that's the youth of the sport.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Without the youth of the sport, we would have nothing later on.
Right. Right. Well, that being said, I don't have anything else to add tonight, unless you got any questions or something you'd like to ask me.
All I'm gonna say is if you people out there, if you have a group that's thinks they're capable rigs and work together well and everything, and you want to call John and try to set up an event, please do. Help the guy out. He's got an awesome park. I've been there at least 5 times. I've done some rec wheeling there. It's awesome fun. And please go out and check them out and let them know if you have a group that wants to go wheeling there.
Thank you for the pitch.
All right, we're gonna close this out.
All right, I look forward to
And
seeing you next year.
oh, I'm gonna come down there and come see you no matter what. I got a group of people I think want to get down there. So,
All
but
right.
let's thank our 2025 sponsors. We'd like to thank Mother's Off-Road Recovery, Radial Dynamics, 386 Fab, Wheeling for Warriors, Kincaid Fabrication, and JM Rigging. Without this year's sponsors, we couldn't have done what we did. And I hope that this isn't the end of what we've done. So
I don't think so. I think we're going to continue without these people.
I hope we get the crew. The Out West crew was awesome. The King of the Hammers was
Right.
awesome.
So,
So
you know,
until the next time, everybody. Thank you again, John, for coming on. We greatly appreciate your honesty and your integrity to your park, and we will chat shortly, I'm sure.
yeah, well, my integrity's beyond the park. It's to the sport. You know,
And we greatly appreciate
that I've been a wheeler for 50 years. You know, that's a long time. And,
Stop
you
dating
know, until I
yourself.
get, yeah, well, till I get too old to do it. You know what I mean? It's the day's coming where I'll be too old to do it. But, you know, until I get too old to do it, I'll be there with you.
Can't wait. We'll see you soon, John. Thank you again.
Okay, good night. He broke.